What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some Goa-trance. Hello, Luca. You were quick on that one. But yes, we're going to listen to a Goa-trance tune from 1997. This is a rare track by Bypass Unit, which was back then a group. I think at their biggest there were 4 people in the group. I want to say for a while it may have been a duo. These days I think it's just one of the guys. And in fact, most of their material, as I wrote in my review on the Bypass Unit Discogs page, most of their output back in the 90s was CD only. And I've talked about it before, Goa-trance and Psytrance, they were the first of the classic 90s rave genres to go almost entirely digital. So a lot of the labels that put out Psytrance and Goa-trance vinyl, by the time you get to 2000, certainly in the years after that, they switched to entirely digital releases because I think a lot of Goa and Psy DJs were converting their hardware to more digital technology, which isn't really a criticism. I'm just sort of a dinosaur. So back then it was an unfortunate thing in that Goa was one of the genres I would buy on vinyl, but I stopped buying it partially because it just was drying up on that format. In any case, there's only 2 records from Bypass Unit from back then on vinyl, and all their other releases, including some great tracks. They did a tune called Green Dreams, which is actually more like a trippy acid trance tune rather than Goa or Psy, even though they're known as like a Goa Psytrance act. And that one is digital only. It's, as far as I know, it was never on vinyl, which is a real shame because it's a great tune. But they're actually, in 2024, there was a Bypass Unit versus, what was it, like, not Colorbox, I forget the name of the other artist, but there was a retrospective vinyl that was put out. I think it took a couple of the classic tracks from both Bypass Unit and from this other artist or maybe group and pressed it on vinyl for the first time. Neither of the tracks from Bypass Unit were Green Dreams, unfortunately. But yeah, this is from 97. It's on Hypnotic, which is funny because this label is known mainly for CD releases. I have a lot of CD from back in the 90s, or a lot of CDs, plural, from back in the 90s on Hypnotic, but I guess they did put out at least a few records as well. Anyway, we're going to listen to a tune called Tunnel Flotation, and there's a few different versions of it, but the one that we're going to listen to is the 1997 remix, which is also called Final Version. So yes, with no further ado, let's listen to Bypass Unit at a time when I think they were not only a group, but I think there may have been 4 people. And the track is called Tunnel Flotation, Final Version 1997. Is it mix or remix? I think it's remix. Yeah, remix. On Hypnotic Records. Is that right? Yeah. I guess I just never used the intro. I always like mix into this track. Whoa. That Goa bass line. Electric bubbles and squiggles. Goa kick drums, man. Like these acid streaks flying through the sky, and then that almost like Transylvanian organ melodic line. Everything clears out. Gotta come around. Cosmic acid ripples. That is, I guess it's a hi-hat, not the ride cymbal, but there's some high percussive layer that has this real, almost like tambourine quality to it. But it does have this traversing through dark space feel to it, with a bit of a Transylvanian twist. At a late 90s desert or forest Goa party, there'd be some serious dancing to this. Love that acid squiggle, which almost becomes a bit of a punchline. Like, if you know that scene in Amadeus where he plays for the Emperor and sort of riffs or improvises on a piece that Salieri composed, and then he like turns it into something much more fantastic than Salieri wrote, and it's this really dynamic and rich melodic piece, and then he ends it with this very silly bum, bum, bum. It feels almost like that acid bit at the end there is a cheeky like wink at the end of an otherwise driving, serious cosmic tune. Again, maybe a bit Transylvanian with that organ style melody, so maybe Simon Belmont in space. In any case, the point is that's a classic. I don't remember what compilation I heard it on, but I definitely heard it back in the day, and then many years later through Discogs I discovered, oh wait, there's actually a vinyl release of this? I never knew, because again, a lot of the tracks in the Goa Psy realm that I became aware of, even when it was still the 90s, were either only on compilations, and at the time, not a lot of the record shops that I went to were selling Goa-trance vinyl. It was more like techno and like regular, meaning hard or progressive trance vinyl, hardcore, drum and bass, and so on. But yes, eventually I discovered Discogs and learned that at least a few of those classic Goa tunes back in the 90s, and even albums in some cases, were actually on vinyl. And so once I learned of this one, I snapped it up. I do also have another Bypass Unit vinyl from back then. I forget, it's on a different label, and the label has like this sun with like a face on it. I have, in fact, I think 2 other records from that same label, though from artists that I don't really know. Like, I never really knew who they were. They were artists that, they were sort of one-off as I discovered a record in a record shop, whereas this record and the other Bypass 12-inch I have, or Bypass Unit 12-inch I have, those were sought out through Discogs specifically. But yeah, as I said, it's just a real desert party out under the stars, or in a forest somewhere in the late 90s with lots of Goa Psy people dancing very cosmically and so on. It just really sets a scene for me, which is partly nostalgic, partially flashback, but I think just the character of the music also suggests that type of environment. Now, I think you could get away with playing this at an indoor party, but I don't think it would have quite the majestic scope that playing this at an outdoor party certainly would. So once again, shout out to the classic version of Bypass Unit, which, as I said, I think there were 4 people at one point. And shout out to the one guy who remains. I think his name is Rene, like Abelgard, something like that. So, yeah, shout out to him. Again, I think he has continued to make some tracks over the years, though I think most have been digital only, which is, again, not a knock. I realize most DJs, even like acid techno DJs and some genres that historically were on vinyl, I think a lot of folks have converted their collection to digital because it's easier to store, it's, easier to travel with, you don't need record crates or anything, you just have, a memory stick, boom, you plug it in, you're ready to go. But yeah, for some of us who are, I suppose, audiophiles and collectors, I continue to give props not only to vinyl back in the day, but to those labels that continue or have even more recently started to put out vinyl. In fact, there's a few labels across the genres I listen to that either they weren't around back in the day, or they were, but they did mainly put out digital stuff. But since the vinyl revolution of like 2009, 2010, up into the present, they've actually started to put out at least some vinyl releases. So shout out to all music on vinyl and to all Goa Psy producers in general, and specifically in this case, the Bypass Unit. Let me know what you think of the tune, and Luca and I will see you next time. Peace.